right, so today we have a great guest, Chen Goldberg, SVP of Engineering at CoreWeave. Tagline is the essential cloud for AI, the force multiplier for AI, trusted by the world's leading AI pioneers. And she is an industry veteran, formerly ran big engineering teams at Google. And so with that, Chen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ben. I'm excited to be here. And maybe one correction before we kick off. My name is pronounced Chen.
All right. Let's see. So for some context, I'm sure a lot of our listeners already know this, but CoreWeave is, as I said, a cloud platform focused on AI. It does have some strategic partners, including NVIDIA, which is both an investor and obviously a supplier of chips, and then OpenAI, which is also one of their larger customers. So with that out of the way, I guess my first question to you is obviously you probably have seen the same surveys I have, which is, a lot of people have AI pilots, but they don't go to production. But I actually think a lot of those surveys are a bit overblown because I do talk to a lot of people and they do have AI in production. So as best as you can tell, how would you describe the state of reality in terms of pilots in production?
I think how quickly the industry moved from experimentation to production, and even these kind of surveys, is really a testament of how AI is impacting the industry as a whole. It's just yet another example, right? We can talk about how engineers, I lead engineering teams at CoreWeave, how our work has changed just these past 3 months with models. So what we are hearing from customers, that has definitely changed. And furthermore, it's not just moving from experimentation to production. There's a lot of, still with that move, there's still a lot of unknowns and a lot of challenges around how do I differentiate? What is my unique asset if I'm an enterprise or a startup? So there is just a lot of things that folks have to think about, including which cloud provider they are partnering with.
So I guess for our listeners, to kind of frame your responses moving forward. So you are talking to people that are just not, you're just not talking to people inside the Silicon Valley bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking to people in regular companies, right? So across different industries. Is that correct?
Correct. And again, that change also happened pretty quickly, I would say, from a level of interest. And it's similar, but probably on steroids, what we have seen when we, 10 years ago or so, when we talked about cloud native and move to the cloud, where the evolution of SaaS happened and how we create experiences really impacted every industry. We're seeing the same thing right now. And what I see companies doing, definitely outside of Silicon Valley, is really looking inside and think, okay, what kind of assets we have? Okay, what kind of data do I have? What kind of people, what kind of customers do I have? And then thinking about how they take that and innovate further.
And as you mentioned, so the cloud computing journey for a lot of companies, they've had years and years of experience, right? So either they're working with one of these hyperscalers, or maybe they have their own cloud setup. But for AI, a lot of companies have a lot less experience, right? And they already have relationships with existing cloud platforms. So at what point does it make sense for a company to look at something like CoreWeave, one of these AI first cloud platforms? So how much AI am I already doing before I even look at something like CoreWeave? Or is that the right question? right?
It is definitely the right question. And specialized tools, I think everybody should consider that. And, as a company like ours, yes, we are, of course, specializing with our infrastructure, but we are also building developer tools with our weights and biases platform. I think that like any other area that you want to differentiate in and to have an edge, you need to make sure that you get yourself the best support you can. And with that in mind, I think that everybody should explore the best of breed approach and what can really help them accelerate, right? If you just do what everyone else is doing, then you won't have that edge, assuming you need it or you want it for your business or it's critical. Specifically, when we think about our customers, when we talk about our customers for our cloud services, anyone that is either doing any type of training or using Inference for real production workloads, which means that they care about security, reliability, and scale. That can be either latency or performance. Those are kind of customers that talk to us. And what we are doing, I think, where we are unique, we are thinking about it as like a tiger team, like the experts in this space. So when someone comes to us, one thing that our customers are telling us that this is beyond that, just I'm a vendor, give me something, I'm going to pay you. It's really a partnership in essence. And we take pride in that, which again, it's very much similar, in my opinion, to early days cloud, where you're looking to those trusted partners that can help you accelerate. And there is for example, we'll just give an example of a startup company. They actually took significant of the money they raised and decided to use it to partner with us. And when talking with them, they said like, hey, we don't want to waste our resources on things that you already solved and we know you're the best. So that's the way I think about that.
By the way, I want to give a shout out to another open source project that you folks acquired, Marimo.
Yes. Are you a fan of Marimo?
Yes, yeah. I've had him on this podcast actually.
Awesome.
And I'm friends with Lucas as well of Weights and Biases. So great tools that you folks have
I think that's really speaks about that strategy of looking for the best tools for the job. And that's been our strategy and where we're focusing. And definitely with folks like Lucas and Sean from the Weights and Biases or Akshay from Marimo. It's about innovating. It's about taking a different approach to this problem and where we think it really creates the right results.
So you mentioned the two things that people tend to do, right? So training and inference. So the stereotype is training. That's mostly for Silicon Valley giants and labs. And you can probably give us examples of otherwise. So are there companies that are actually doing training that are not one of these tech companies?
Yes. I will give a couple of examples. Definitely anyone on the financial world, when we think about risk, as an example, is something that we see customers using training with their own data already.
Really? So this is like a foundation model.
Building their own models they've been doing by the way ML before, right? There's nothing new about that. So it's not necessarily doing their own LLMs, but just the work of training models. And on we are also seeing on the retail side companies investing in unique experiences. There is an assumption that the way we as consume research data, will see that definitely early on drug discovery and research around health. We've seen some of those customers definitely running things at scale at this space. And there is some other things that are very common. Very common. Maybe it's a Silicon Valley. Maybe I shouldn't say very common. Some other use cases around call center services, video generation which is again other use cases.
Yeah,
A video.
the
It's
video
not just gaming.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not just
the
gaming.
video generation is interesting because it's something that the foundation model builders can do, right? So Gemini can do it, OpenAI can do it. But for some reason, there's still an opening for startups that really specialize in this, right?
Yeah. Uh, I think that for everything, it's probably too early
Yeah,
to talk about disruption
yeah.
in this space. Because maybe in parallel to what we are seeing around the strength of foundation models, we also see evolution of tools. Right? How easy it is to maybe train or do inference at scale or use your own data.
Fine tuning has become so easy now, right? So,
And we're just at the beginning, right? If
yeah.
you think about like where we were 6 months ago, so much has evolved. Actually, that's another, we've acquired another company last year that's called OpenPipe. And what they're doing, they are making reinforcement learning easier, right? So the idea is that they make it simpler for you to do the trade-off between best, cheap, and fast, right? It's always that trade-off. But can they help on some of those metrics make things more automated and like a good enough approach? And again, it depends on what task we're trying to solve for. So too early. There's a new model coming up every day.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up.
Almost literally.
Yeah. Not all, yes, sometimes
Yeah.
too. No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
but
yeah. And I'm going to go back to reinforcement learning in a little bit here. But so on the inference side, uh, what's the biggest, I guess, rude awakening that people have when they move to a high production kind of application? So at first, of course, they go, we can just maybe use a traditional cloud or do this ourselves. But then at some point, what causes them to move to something like CoreWeave?
so maybe I think that's a great opportunity to talk about maybe the origin story or why I joined CoreWeave.
Yeah.
So for folks maybe that don't, I'm sure many don't know, I've spent almost a decade at Google Cloud.
Kubernetes.
Yes, part of the founding team of Kubernetes.
Yeah.
And it really what Kubernetes did in the space of cloud is create an abstraction layer, right? Making cloud resources feel the same everywhere, right? And actually creating the opportunity for portability of workloads and multi-cloud becoming a reality. And part of that world was on the fundamental assumption that all resources are the same, right? And if I'm a user, I can declare what kind of resources I need. I don't need to go to too much details, and I can let this orchestrator deal with things on my behalf.
Which for our younger listeners was a pain in the you-know-where before Kubernetes.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And there was no need for it to be hard. And then what happened with AI workloads is that some of those assumptions that we had in the past were no longer true. For example, the idea that I can easily move workloads from one node to another, from one machine to another. That's actually no longer true because actually most workloads, especially when you run things at scale, are running on multiple nodes, on multiple machines. And that makes that orchestration and how you think about highly available systems and reliability different. The cost and complexity of systems became really hard, right? Once you understand that you're moving from a single node to multi-node environment, and you add on top of that the cost and the complexity of the systems, then the risk of having one point underperforming and just dragging down the entire system has huge consequences. Huge consequences. It's like it's for some customers and companies, tens of millions of dollars, and Also, it's an advantage from a company. If I cannot move fast enough or if my service is down, it will impact my business, period.
Yeah, user experience is so critical.
Correct. And that's where companies like CoreWeave came about. And I joined CoreWeave because I saw some of those challenges while I was working at Google. And two things. One, not being part of this infrastructure replatforming felt to me like a missed opportunity as an infrastructure person. It's a great time. And I realized that in order to meet the demand of those workloads, we need to do things differently. Okay, we have the opportunity to do things differently. And that's what CoreWeave is about, okay? We have the privilege and luxury to really focus on a smaller set of problems. We can build simpler solutions for that. And we're doing it across the stack. And maybe that will be the other point the other thing that we've learned is that it's not one thing. Okay, it's not just like your GPU or it's always a combination of things, of how you get that sustainable differentiation, that's a sustainable advantage. And that's what we do. We optimize different things across the stack.
One of the things that I came across that I found interesting is this thing that you call Arena.
Yes.
Which is like almost like a digital twin for people running large AI workloads, right? So it's a simulation environment, right?
Actually, what's unique about it, it's not a simulation environment.
Oh,
it's real infrastructure,
it's real
production. It's our real cloud. What we have
so
seen.
is it like a here's my workload, and then you have like a exact copy, and then you simulate there?
Yes, some of the decisions that people are asked to make right now, and you've asked Ben before about inference, is making decisions around the infrastructure. Because if we said before, like with Kubernetes, if I'm running it on H100s or H200 or GP200s, okay, the system has to be different, the architecture, the deployment, things will change and will perform differently between those systems. And people are asked to make big decisions where the stakes are really high without having the data. And those benchmarks that are available, like, test this model, test this, are actually not a good mirror to what will happen in real time or with real production workload. And what we are offering is an experience that right now we know is valued by all of our customers, is the opportunity to partner with us, with your real workloads, and we bring the expertise of real infrastructure. And it gives you the opportunity to benchmark what kind of environment, what kind of storage solution should I use, what kind of networking, what kind of data I have. Let's do troubleshooting. How do I do highly available? There's a lot of questions that we are helping customers accelerate the decision-making instead of guessing and not getting into those long-term commitments without having any answer, which I think is what the industry is expecting people to do. And it's not reasonable, really.
So basically it allows me to stress test beyond what GPUs do I have.
Stress the system and learn. Right? We're all talking about experimentation.
So then when as you were describing it, I imagined like almost like many dimensions, almost like a multi-arm bandit that I have to optimize the configuration,
exactly.
right? So
exactly. I think that's exactly right. You're spot on. It's not one dimension. It's not just which model I'm using, but it's also how I'm deploying it, how the network is configured. What kind of data am I measuring? Where do I getting my data into? There's a lot of things I would like to consider. And we talk a lot about performance and reliability. There is another aspect that is really critical to our customers, which is security, which also relates to, of course, instrumentation and observability. So having a system where you can partner with experts on all of those dimensions and make some quick decisions is key.
And you folks also introduced this notion of efficiency, which I don't know if I've heard this term before, Goodput.
Actually, it started from Google as well.
Okay, so it's the actual time GPU spent performing useful work. So tell us why that's something that people should start tracking.
People are already tracking a lot around efficiency in the sense that because compute is so in demand and very expensive, people are looking for solutions to get the best out of their infrastructure. And maybe, by the way, this is, I think, another big difference between general purpose cloud and AI cloud. And what we have learned, and we've seen that in we are submitting our results to the different MLPerf and benchmarks results, and we're seeing feedback from our customers that there are different type of bottlenecks along the way. So, for example, one of the things that we have done in order to improve Goodput is making sure that we accelerate the amount of data, both from volume and throughput, that gets into the GPU, right? So anything we can do in order to make that processing more effective will be preferred. So we build a specific caching mechanism on top of our CoreWeave AI object storage that accelerates that. So that will be one example. Another thing that we've been doing is giving customer transparency into the system. So that means that when a job is not maybe performing well, I can quicker know what's the root cause, right? Because maybe my job is underperforming. I want to know why. Do I need to restart? Do I need to fix something? Is it something that will be resolved on its own? Those kind of data, when when the stack is very complicated, it's really hard to learn. So what we've been doing, it's a solution that we call mission control. And we are thinking about the stack as one. So no longer thinking about storage separately, network separately, workloads, orchestration, and so on. But how do we bring all the data together and make informed decisions? So that's another way our customers are able to improve a Goodput. And of course, from reliability perspective, and we have our own proprietary IP that talks about how we test and validate the infrastructure, both proactive and reactive. And those kind of things are all accumulating together to improve efficiency.
By the way, one of the interesting things about IT ops and DevOps is the telemetry and the amount of data that's being generated. In fact, it was always the laboratory for all these massive time series analysis tools and databases. So I imagine you folks are innovating around, it's not just collecting all this telemetry, but making sense of it. So you must be using AI to diagnose AI, right?
Of course, yes.
So
and I imagine
anything to share there?
I think what's definitely interesting is leveraging the amount of data that we have to accelerate troubleshooting even further, which just helps us as a team to be more effective and watching trends. But I imagine that's not unique for us. So that's just us using AI with the data that is an asset that we have as a platform running at scale.
So but you must have a team of people who are building AI tools or massive time series analysis tools or something like that, right? So.
Yes, and every day that goes by, there are more and more people that do that. Because maybe going back to the discussion we had at the beginning when you said like, hey, do you use AI at scale? Of course, like every other company, we're also consumers of other AI technologies, and we are leveraging that significantly.
So obviously, a lot of listeners have heard about GPUs and GPU shortages, so on. But the other thing that's been in the headlines recently is memory.
Yeah.
So anything to report on DRAM, and memory constraints, DRAM supply, rising prices?
I'm not an expert from
Yeah.
a supply chain perspective.
But
Um,
even your high level is a lot more than what we know.
um, so that's, I think, fundamentally the demand for AI infrastructure continues to rise, and it has implications on the entire supply chain. And we're seeing it across the industry. And that's, of course, on one hand, of course, a great opportunity, not just, of course, for building more capacity, but also finding innovative ways to make the infrastructure more efficient. And those are the kind of two things that we are optimizing for. And so internally within the team, of course, we are working with our vendors and working on improving the supply chain. And if anyone is in that space, and I'm sure everybody are familiar with that challenge right now. But in addition to that, we are also looking at how we can help our customers optimize and finding solutions. I think that's like at the end of the day is how do we partner with our customers
Because memory is a critical component as well, right? So
for everything.
because it's the model sizes, right? So
Memories, and it's not just memory, but yes,
so
almost everything in the supply chain is impacted at the moment.
so you brought up the topic of reinforcement learning earlier. I'm a long
Yeah.
time reinforcement learning fan, cheerleader in some ways, but I've always it's always been one of these things that's always just around the corner, beyond the grasp of regular teams, right? So always the province of advanced teams. So you seem to be hinting that it's getting closer to being much more accessible and usable. You're seeing more people at least trying it out.
We're seeing more people trying it out, and again, I think that this is where folks are moving to more of those production use cases, and the need to make that trade-off.
So just to
Uh,
clarify, we're not talking Silicon Valley bubble companies here. It's so you're seeing RL beyond the usual tech suspects. Is that what you're hinting at?
um, Tech companies, not just startups,
Not just startups. Okay.
not just startups, but definitely tech companies that are um, investing in AI right now in order to innovate, differentiate, are the kind of companies that are definitely investing in this space.
So for reinforcement learning, maybe you need more CPUs as well, right?
Yes, of course.
So then, so is that part of what you folks are trying to understand? Okay, so if reinforcement learning grows, we need to add CPU capacity. Is that?
Look, I think that some folks, like when they think about CoreWeave, they just think about like GPUs in large clusters. That's not the case. The way people,
That's the stereotype.
yes, um, the way people should think about it is that CoreWeave, as the AI hyperscaler, uh, gives you all the tools and infrastructure you need in order to run your AI workloads, period. That means, okay, that of course we have file systems and object storage and CPUs, and we have a cloud console and API and Terraform and security guarantees and SLAs and SLOs. And we
Vector
have
databases.
Kubernetes. Sorry?
Vector databases.
We are helping customers manage their own. We
Manage.
don't yet have a managed service
Yeah.
of a vector database. But the goal, but the way someone will consume is they will find a lot of things that are familiar from other clouds. We've launched our serverless RL offering. So there is, of course, we have an inference service. So just think about the set of tools and services. And you yourself mentioned like Marimo and weights and biases. So that's our approach. So it's a simpler stack, highly optimized. And of course, if there is a need for CPU and other things, then of course it's available as part of our offering.
Do you folks have Ray? I'm an advisor to Anyscale.
We have customers using Array on CoreWeave as well. And if you look at our documentation, there is some help charts and examples of how you can run Array on CKS, CoreWeave Kubernetes Service.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned right at the beginning, right? So NVIDIA and CoreWeave are kind of joined at the hip, but I don't know how much you can answer this question, but there's also other alternatives to NVIDIA, right? So other GPUs, custom silicon. So that's not something you folks pay attention to at all, because you're all in on NVIDIA, or do you monitor the rise of alternatives?
We monitor the entire industry all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we partner with different vendors in the industry, as long as it's what we are hearing from our customers. Okay, and that's really for us the North Star, and that's where the partnership with NVIDIA has been so great. We are working as a partner and as a customer, of course, and it's important to mention that our differentiation goes beyond the GPUs, of course, right? Because we talked about before the multiple dimensions, and we are investing across the stack, and there is place for solution innovation. But at the moment, we don't see demand or a need to diversify beyond working with NVIDIA. And NVIDIA already has a portfolio of accelerator, which we make available.
And obviously, one of NVIDIA's main secrets, of course, is their software stack is so much better than, much more mature and much bigger ecosystem than the other hardware platforms, right? Yeah, so let's see. I wanted to ask you about the other buzzword, which is agents.
Okay.
Obviously, agents, the computational patterns is slightly different than just straight up inference. So what changes for a customer that's doing a lot of agents, and what does that mean for their infrastructure?
First of all, like before, like you mentioned, definitely when you're running agents at scale, there's different requirements from a compute. It's GPUs, it's CPU for two. So there's different.
Yeah, and then agents also they might do reasoning, but they might also do these loops. They're calling tools, they're calling other agents, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we are talking with customers, there are multiple things that are very important. One, of course, is where they have the data and data gravity. By the way, agents also create, and we start seeing more people talking about it. When we talk about agents and data, there's a lot of security considerations that people are thinking about. There's a lot of innovation in this space. We see, for example, a need for sandbox as part of that, right? Like, how do I run like maybe untrusted code as part of those those systems, and definitely the scale. So those are the kind of things that we're seeing customers do. There are also, of course, folks that are using existing like off-the-shelf systems that they can use for agents, and I expect we'll see more of that. So we are also internally like we are customers of other systems in some areas.
So your sense is people are really using agents, it's real, and what percentage of people are using of these workloads are now agentic, you would say? It's impossible to answer, but
It's impossible.
Non-trivial.
I can only probably like my best insight is from thinking about our product and engineering team, right? So where I see our own team, and I imagine that's true in a sense, but I'm not an expert into other areas. we're having conversations when you think about agentic coding, for example, the quality, how does it change code contribution? How do you do code review? The size of pair. So those are kind of conversations from quality, how much you need human in the loop, when, and the expertise that humans need to demonstrate in order to be effective. So those are kind of conversations that really evolves every day.
So the best models are still the proprietary closed models, but the open weights models are starting to get better.
Mhm.
They're cheaper or they're faster. They're cheaper to run. You can customize them. But the downside is they're from China. In some enterprises, some industries, that's kind of a no-fly zone. So what's your sense of adoption of these Chinese open weights models?
I don't have the data,
Yeah.
but maybe the key point that you said is when you said uh, open source models become better, and then you talked about those dimensions. So at the end, it's kind of a trade-off, right? And it depends on the task. And where RL, for example, can be useful is by making those models better and maybe cheaper and more accurate, right? When we say better, those are the kind of things that we are looking into. It's probably too early to know exactly what people are using because that just keeps changing very frequently.
So in closing, we're still in the early days of AI,
Early days.
but I, people should probably start thinking ahead and worry about technical debt even at this point. So what kind of technical debt are you seeing people incur, and what should they be avoiding at this point?
So first of all, yes, it's early days for AI, but it's moving really fast. And I think that that's something that if people are not experimenting heavily right now, they're probably behind. Even for your own personal productivity, for your product, for your teams. So I think that will be the first thing. The second thing is understanding the implications of that. The market is still constrained. We talked about supply chain, we talked about capacity. Talent will be another. So folks need to make some strategic decision with some unknowns. I know some companies will feel uncomfortable with that, but I think that's part of experimenting with a new technology. And when you think about technical debt, um, I think that will. Yeah, I've been around for enough decades to know that it's it's never like just everything changes, right? We will always stay with some legacy. So I think the opportunity is how to take these new tools and also apply it to maybe the less sexy problems, which can probably be very useful. Like some of the things that I've mentioned is around troubleshooting and engineering excellence and productivity. I think that that's definitely where we see value already today.
Actually, one thing that people don't realize is that so obviously there's a lot of talk about AI for programming and writing code, but there's also a lot of AI and agents being used in data engineering pipelines, ops, DevOps. So there's a lot of things already happening that the consumer may not be realizing is being powered by AI, and that's on the technical side. And I just, I'm in the last few months, I'm getting more and more scared for knowledge workers. Yeah, it's just it really this technology is going to be very disruptive. So as she mentioned, the onus is really on you to really use these tools to upskill, to constantly learn.
Uh, Yes, one of my other passions is mentoring. Okay, again, part of me being in the industry for so long. And if there is one thing that hasn't changed with what I tell folks, whether they're early on in their career or later on, is the importance of being experts. I don't see the tools as a way to avoid depth or expertise or knowing what you do. So maybe that will be the other thing that I think people should think about, especially when there is a new technology. Like, what are the things that I know best, where I can apply my tools? I was just talking with a friend, for example, she's in a marketing domain, and she said that she feels like she has those superpowers now.
Yeah.
Right? She has so much experience, and she can do things she couldn't do before with much less time. And that's the way I think people should think about it.
But that means, though, that there might be fewer. You might end up needing fewer, because one thing that seems like the stats are bearing out is the entry-level jobs for recent college grads. That's really soft at the moment. So there's a bit of a hollowing out of that pipeline, right? So you need those entry-level people to become mid, to become senior inside your company, right? So
You
but
have to.
if you kind of slow down the hiring of that entry level, you lose that
Yeah.
talent, right? So,
I can't speak about correlation. I do believe, and that, we had those kind of thoughts in the past with different technology changes. The advice I would give to junior folks early on in their career, the technology is actually accessible. There's a lot of things that you can start and do and build the expertise. And that's something, maybe I will just bring it back to Kubernetes. One of the things that I loved when we just started is that there was no one with 10 years experience with Kubernetes back then, or with cloud native. It was all new. This is the time. Okay, there is this new technology. And that's the opportunity for folks to lean in.
and with that, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.